Guys, it's John from theproductivegarden.com, and today what I'm going to be doing is I've built the raised bed, and you've seen that before. I'll put a link to how I make my raised beds just here. And what I've got two raised beds that I've finished, and I just need to fill them with growing medium. But what I'm going to be doing with these ones is doing a Hugelkultur type of setup within these raised beds. And I'll show you what I'm going to use to do that. Alright, now you can see here I've got a whole lot of bark that has come from firewood that I've split up, and when it's split up the bark's come off, and I've collected it. And the idea of keeping the bark at first was to use it when we needed something to light the fire and that sort of stuff, like kindling sort of thing. But the bark doesn't light very well, and it also produces a lot of ash, so it's not really all that useful for in the fire. So as a result, we haven't really used it, and I really want to get rid of it and want it to be useful somehow. So this will be the perfect sort of thing. And the other thing I've got is I've got a whole lot of horse manure from some local stables, which I'm going to put on top of that as basically as the soil. Now some people might go, oh, horse manure by itself isn't all that good. I've used horse manure before, and from the place where I got this from, and it's been really good, so I'm not worried about using this at all. This lot of horse manure here is reasonably well composted. It's been sitting in these bags for about a month and a half or so, and this lot here is horse manure that I just picked up about a week or two ago. So what I'm going to do is when I put the bark down into the garden bed, I'm going to put this horse manure on first, so it'll be on the bottom, just above, on top of the bark, and that'll give it time to basically compost down before the roots of the plants that are planted in here get to it. And I'm going to put this on top, so that'll be basically the composted horse manure that's already reasonably well composted and should be, I mean, not that horse manure is that hot anyway, but this shouldn't be all that hot because it's already composted down a fair bit. Okay, so let's get going putting this garden together. Alright, so you can see here basically what I've done with this garden bed at the moment is I've got cardboard down over the top of the grass. Now what I've done with the grass is I've mowed it at as low a level as I could, so it's basically been scalped, and then I've got cardboard on top of that. Now that's pretty much 2 layers of cardboard. These were cardboard that got a bit wet in the rain, so it wasn't easy to lay down straight, and it tore apart a bit. But you basically got 2 layers of cardboard there, and that'll stop the grass from coming up through the bark and through the horse manure when I put it on. So the first thing I've got to do is put the bark in and get a good thick layer of bark, and then start putting the less composted horse manure on top of that. So I'll get some bark in there. I'm not going to be terribly scientific or delicate about how the bark goes on. I just want to basically put a bit of a layer of bark down there, and then it can rot down underneath the soil and provide some good nutritious soil down underneath. So I'll just spread this out. Alright, so there we go. I'll just spread this up into the corners a little bit. And there, so that's the bark spread along the garden. So I've used about half of it. Just try and cover up some of the gaps a bit. Alright, so now that we've got this bark spread out, I'll get some of this not really composted, this newer horse manure onto the garden. Okay, so I'll get that spread out, and then we'll get some of this composted horse manure on top. Alright, now I've got a good layer of the new manure on the garden here, in the garden. Basically smoothed out a bit with the rake. Now I just need to get some of the composted manure on there. Now when I do this, because with the bark there and this relatively uncomposted manure, I'm expecting it to sink a fair bit. So when I do fill it up, I'm going to give it a real good fill up. Probably fill it just over the top of it, because I am expecting it to shrink down a bit. The other thing to mention too is when you put the cardboard in, give the cardboard a bit of a watering when you put it down, just to make sure it's not dry, it's not going to suck all the water out. And the same thing with the bark as well. Now, I'd already watered the cardboard because it was a bit dry once I put it down, but the bark was well and truly wet from the rain that we've had. It's held the water really well. So I didn't really worry about watering that because it was already very wet. Anyway, I'll get on to getting this composted manure on and we'll finish this garden off. Alright, so there you go. So that's this bed filled with a Hugelkultur style of way. Now I know Hugelkultur normally uses logs and that sort of stuff, but bark's pretty close to wood. You could do this if you had logs that you wanted to put down there or sticks that you wanted to put underneath. You could do that as well. You could use whatever. Now basically, one of the downsides of horse manure is you do get like weeds sprout up in there from the feed and that sort of thing. But this also has a lot of sand, it has sawdust and stuff like that, so it's got a lot of good stuff in there that'll really build up this soil. I'm not sure what I'm going to plant in this yet. Maybe I'll get a later crop of brassicas in here. Still need to decide on that. But basically that's it. Now I've got the other bed to do as well, but that's basically it. You just in a Hugelkultur sort of style, and it'll break down the bark underneath, and it'll break down fairly slowly with all the organisms down there. Now, like I said, some people might not want to use horse manure as uncomposted as this is, but like I said, I've used it before, I've had no problem at all. And the other thing is I could go and spend $100 on good garden mix to fill these two beds here, and I got this horse manure for nothing. So I always encourage you, if you can get something that's going to do the job for nothing or as little as possible, then by all means get that stuff that's going to cost as little as possible, and then you can get gardening quicker without having to spend as much money. Okay, anyway, that's it for my Hugelkultur style raised bed, and I'll probably do an update along the way and show you how this goes. Anyway, that's it for now, and until next time, happy productive gardening. Bye.